What is success for this department? It's being looked at as transparent. It's being looked at as somebody that you can go to and get the correct answers from, and they'll be honest with their opinions of what's going on.
Coming up on KCCI 8 News Close-Up, I sit down with the new Des Moines police chief for a one-on-one interview for the first time since he stepped into the role. Hear more about his vision for the future of the department. And EMS providers in 5 Iowa counties are wondering how they'll provide crucial services after losing a pivotal vote. Why one leader says the decision should be left up to individual counties.
Different counties have different needs. And for the county to be able to tailor their needs or tailor their levy or their ask to their needs is important.
This is Iowa's news leader. This is KCCI 8 News Close Up.
Good morning and thank you for joining us for KCCI 8 News Close-Up. I'm Ophelia Jacobson. Voters in 7 Iowa counties approved a ballot measure to increase funding for countywide emergency medical services in the general election. Another 5 voted down their EMS referendums. That includes Buchanan, Floyd, Guthrie, Page, and Taylor counties. We told you about one woman's push to expand EMS services in Guthrie County after her husband died from a stroke. The measure there failed by 6 percentage points. Now the 5 Iowa counties where the vote failed will have to start all over again if they want to fund an EMS as an essential service. Voters in Guthrie County tell me they're disappointed, but county officials say their work to improve services is far from over. In the city of Panora, Main Street is being transformed. Christmas decorations are out and change is in the air. But some voters in Guthrie County,
well, I was a little bit surprised.
We're hoping for a different kind of change.
I really thought that the number of people in the county would support it.
Carla Brisley was one of more than 3,000 people who voted yes on a ballot measure to fund countywide emergency medical services. The tax referendum failed with just under 54% voting yes. It needed 60% approval to pass.
Disappointed.
Panora EMS Director John D. Laverne says he was confident the measure was going to pass. The tax levy would have raised in upwards of $800,000 a year. The department was one of 3 that would have gotten a cut of that money.
It may just be reaching out more, have more meetings, try and get the word out sooner and everything.
D. Laverne says now they'll need to reevaluate their services. He says he doesn't know if they'll still be able to cover 80% of the county like they do right now.
I really hope that we don't have to do any drastic cuts as a result. I'm not sure at this point what our options are.
He hopes they'll get another shot at securing more funding.
I would hope that they are still behind us and would like to see this go forward.
Are you willing to go through that process again?
Yeah, I am willing to go through that process again, yes.
County Supervisor Mike Dixon voted against the ballot measure, but he says the conversation around EMS is important and it isn't over.
I would hope there'd be a better plan to cover faster response times to the western part of the county. Also, I would hope that there would be agreements in place before it would go to a public vote.
For it to go to a public vote again, the process has to start all over. The Board of Supervisors has to pass another resolution declaring EMS an essential service. A new advisory committee has to be formed, and then it can be on the ballot.
It's still an issue that we need to resolve.
Brisley says that change can't come soon enough.
Well, I hope they try it again. I think there's definitely a need here. And as there is in all of Iowa, to reach all the rural people.
Now, voters in these 7 counties on your screen, Appanoose, Butler, Cass, Hamilton, Jefferson, Sac, and Tama, approved the ballot measure on November 5th. That brings the total number of counties where the vote has passed to 20. The Iowa EMS Association pushed that critical piece of legislation signed by Governor Kim Reynolds in 2021. I sat down with the legislative chair for the Iowa EMS Association to talk about the progress he's seeing across the state and what the association's goals are for this upcoming legislative session. Well, I'm joined by the legislative liaison for the Iowa EMS Association, Mark McCulloch. Thank you so much for being here today to talk about the state of emergency medical services in Iowa.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
We have now 20 counties across the state that have declared EMS to be an essential service and went through that entire process to pass that tax referendum. Your reaction to that number, 20 out of 99?
Yeah, I think that shows that Iowans value EMS. I think it shows that they consider EMS an essential service. And that sends a pretty strong signal to all of us that, yeah, we're here, we're supported by our communities, and they're willing to take the steps to support EMS in their own hometowns.
More recently, we had 12 counties that had it on the ballot on November 5th. 7 counties passed that. Taking a look at what happened in those counties that were able to approve that measure, what do you think went right in that process?
I think, it's early to tell. It's only a week or two from that passing. But I think generally it comes down to a good public information message, a very transparent message of exactly what we're asking for, what we have available to us now, and what your tax dollars will improve. That's what the people want to hear. They want to know what their efforts, what their tax dollars will be supporting, and what they'll get for that in return.
I've spoken with voters and county officials, even EMS directors, who say that they would just rather the state take that action to declare EMS an essential service statewide. Mm-hmm. Is that something that your association would push or support?
Absolutely. We're always supportive of EMS and mostly supportive of the people who are providing EMS in the communities. We've asked many years for a statewide or a blanket type of mandate. The next question that we're asked back is usually met with support, and lawmakers usually say, we support EMS, and I believe them, they do. But then they ask the question, how much would that cost? Or what are the needs? How many responders do we need? And what does the system look like? And unfortunately, we have struggled to answer those questions. We don't know the cost of a statewide mandate, and we don't know the benefit. We think we know the benefits. We don't know some of the unintended consequences. So I think that this approach for now is right-sized. It will give us a very good idea, a very clear picture of what Iowans think about EMS.
But you all believe for the moment it's best to let each county determine what their needs are?
I do at this point, absolutely. Yeah, I think that, different counties have different needs. And for the county to be able to tailor their needs or tailor their levy or their ask to their needs is important at this point.
We've talked a lot about how there's still work to be done with EMS in our state. I feel like it's a never-ending conversation. Any previews that you can give us for the 2025 legislative session?
Yeah, we're always focused on attracting people to the industry. This is a very big ask, and the people who provide EMS in their communities are heroes. So any chance that we can get to get more interest in the industry, to make it an easier ask of us to ask people to provide EMS in their communities. Anything we can do to support those individuals, we're always looking for that. And on top of that, we're always looking for means of reimbursement. Right now, as it stands, when an EMS agency takes an EMS trip, they're reimbursed through a typical medical payer system, and those reimbursements come nowhere close to the cost of providing service. The cost of readiness is very high. So we're interested in seeing what we can do to improve those payments, to increase those payments.
Any advice or message for people sitting at home who are sitting there saying, what can I do to help EMS in my county?
Yeah. Reach out to your local providers. Their doors are usually open, and I can tell you, I'm biased, of course, but they're the friendliest people in Iowa. They're here to serve their communities. And go to your local volunteer agency and ask what they need in support. I want people to know how big of a commitment our EMS responders are making for their communities. And that's so important that people understand, if you want to make a difference, you want to help the people that live around you in a meaningful way, EMS is your ticket.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on KCCI 8 News Close Up. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
I want to hear the new ideas. I want to hear new ideas from officers about what would be successful for morale.
The New Ways Chief Michael McTaggart wants to run the Des Moines Police Department now that he's at the helm when KCCI 8 News Close-Up returns. Thank you so much for joining us. We're joined by Des Moines' newest police chief, Chief Michael McTaggart. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me.
So it's been a little over 2 weeks since you officially took over the job. How's that transition been for you?
It's been very busy. Lots of meeting, trying to get out and meet all the people we already have relationships with, but then try to establish new relationships too.
And has this been a lifelong goal of yours? You've been with the department for 25 years. Is this something that you really wanted to step into down the line?
Absolutely not. I wanted to be a police officer. That's what I wanted to be. And as I progressed through here, I've been here a little over 25 years, and there's always new challenges. You want to challenge yourself, try to get better. And the opportunity arose in the last 6 months or so, but I had never really thought of becoming a chief of police here or anywhere else. It wasn't really a goal, but I saw it as a great opportunity and a great challenge for the end of my career.
And you mentioned all of those years of experience, just to name a few, in the patrol division, robbery and homicide, and the intelligence unit. It sounds like you've had the chance to have a lot of different experiences within the department. How is that going to help you in this new role?
I think it helps as a leader to understand what other investigators, other officers are doing, and how you can try to improve what they set as goals and what they mark as success. And to understand what they're going through is a big help as a leader. So you're able to understand exactly where you want the department to go in the future and how the success can be shown to everybody, not just within the department, but to the citizens of Des Moines too.
What are your top 3 priorities for protecting the city of Des Moines?
Top 3 priorities is get out in the community more. And part of that is also giving data and having a transparent data on many of the top questions that we've gotten from neighborhood groups, and having that available easily. Instead of just giving you a bunch of numbers, we will have on our website and also on our app these pretty nice diagrams of what the common questions and what the data shows on those common questions. So that part we're really close to rolling out, should be here pretty shortly. And also recruiting and retention. You know, recruiting and retention are big things in police work all around the country. The retention part is more a morale issue. You have to show that all your employees, whether they're police officers or civilians, are valued. And part of that is communication and talking to them and showing that you appreciate the job they do. And recruiting, again, this is not a Des Moines only thing. However, it's important to me that we don't lose out on any homegrown talent. Anybody from the city of Des Moines that's thinking about being a police officer, I would love the opportunity for them to look at our police department and all the options they have here. I'd stack our police department up against any in the country as far as ability to go to new places in the department, try new things, keep yourself interested and challenged over a 30-year career.
What is your approach to policing and leading this department?
So policing is, it's a big term, but there's a kind of an old adage: you can police the community or you can be part of the community. Des Moines police have to be part of the community. And what I mean by that is we can't just be looked at as law enforcing the law. We have to be able to be out in the community, be seen as a positive example at community events. Des Moines police have done a really directed job of trying to go out and be a part of the community at events that have very little to do with actual law enforcement, but more to do with neighborhoods and being a part of the community and trying to get out and get the message out. What is success for this department? It's being looked at as transparent. It's being looked at as somebody that you can go to and get the correct answers from, and they'll be honest with their opinions of what's going on.
And talking about Des Moines just as a city, what is the most pressing issue that you hope to solve? Is it crime? Is it homelessness, drugs? What do you see as the most pressing issue?
Well, those are some hot topics right there. I would say gun crime is the number one thing that I would like to try to lower. That is what will cause the most damage in this city. So if we can get working on some initiatives on that, that'd be good.
And do you have anything in the works on how to lower gun violence here?
Well, there's some, with our data that we've been able to get, there are some statistics that hopefully we can narrow down. While there might be gun crime, it's not universal. It's not everybody carrying the same amount of guns. There are specific people that do a lot of the gun crime, and if we can narrow down through statistics what the hotspot areas are, where we should deploy our resources, I think that'll help us gain increased success in that.
And coming up after the break, our conversation with Chief Michael McTaggart continues. What he wants people to know about him and the message he has for the city of Des Moines. Welcome back to Close Up. Des Moines' new chief of police is wrapping up his third week on the job. I wanted to get to know who he is as a person and what he wants his legacy to be. Are there any specific moments or lessons that have really stood out to you in your career thus far that you hope to take with you as you step into this new role?
You know, police work has a lot of changing parts, and very few instances are exactly the same. So there's opportunities that come up, and some of them are very tragic opportunities that you have to deal with at the time. Homicides, shootings, you have to deal with that. And unfortunately, the more you deal with those things, the better you get at it. And so when we've had officers get killed in line of duty, you know, that is a big deal for us as a department and police officers around the country. And everybody wants to help. Well, you have to manage those resources that come in to still have a successful investigation, still keep morale up, and you learn from that. I was in charge of the Beminio and Martin homicides, and again, I kind of talked about this, but being able to use resources correctly and put people in successful positions is important. Use their skills, use what they're good at to help out your investigation. And you know, you want to be fast, but you want to do it correct the first time.
What are some areas within the department you think need to see some change, things that can be improved?
Well, the biggest area of the department is our patrol. Patrol watches. These are the officers that are going to respond to 911 calls or majority of our traffic accidents. What I think can be improved is, it's going to sound counterproductive, but slowing down. And what I mean by that is, instead of trying to get through an incident quickly because there's other incidents holding, what I would like to see is officers slow down and do a thorough job at each incident they're at, write a thorough report, do a thorough investigation. This doesn't take much money to do. It doesn't take a whole lot of retraining to do.
I want to get to know who you are as a person, as a human being. What is the most important thing that people should know about you?
I don't like talking about myself a whole lot. I don't spend a whole lot of time doing that. I'm pretty much a regular person. I'm not, you know, super skilled at anything. I own an older house. I like to work on that sometimes. The last year and a half, I really haven't because I've been too busy. But if I can, I read a lot, and I'm fascinated learning new things.
What gets you out of bed every single morning?
Well, I mean, other than the alarm clock and knowing I have to go to work, I like to get up early. I get up usually about 4:30, go work out. Although I'm not, you know, a super avid person of 7 days a week working out, I like to have some physical activity in the morning and get the blood flowing. And you know, we got a wife, kids. I gotta be in shape and at least, you know, try my best to have a positive attitude, and working out does help that. I feel, you know, just relieve some stress, and you know, you're actually able to think about some positive things.
What would you want your legacy to be? What would you say that, like, this is the thing that I was most proud of during my time as chief of police?
I haven't quite thought that far ahead, but if I did say something, I would hope the morale was high and crime was low. That would be a success. Those are kind of pie in the sky goals as far as crime being low all the time, but that is a goal. But morale can be worked on, and it's morale fluctuates. It goes up and down, and hopefully when I leave, it's on a high note. And hopefully it's not on a high note because I'm leaving.
Any message that you'd like to share with people here in Des Moines?
I would say, you know, the next 90 days to 6 months, I am going to be going out in the community talking to people. If you have ideas or issues, I'm interested in them, but I'm also interested if you have ideas of how we could change something that's negative, or let us know if there's something positive, and see if we can do that even more. But in the window between 90 days and 6 months, there'll be some changes on this department.
Welcome back. President-elect Donald Trump is already filling up his roster for his administration. He announced several key appointments last week. On Wednesday, Trump made his victor's return to the White House. He held a nearly 2-hour Oval Office meeting with President Joe Biden that started with a handshake. Biden called for a smooth transition of power. Trump also pledged a smooth transition and thanked Biden for the invitation. Back here in Iowa, all of the Republican leaders of the Iowa House and Senate have been re-elected to serve again in 2025. Iowa's 91st General Assembly begins on January 13th with Senator Jack Whitver as Senate Majority Leader, Senator Amy Sinclair as Senate President, Representative Pat Grassley as Speaker of the House, Representative Matt Winschittel as House Majority Leader. Representative Jennifer Confirst will serve as the Democratic Iowa House Minority Leader, Representative Lindsey James as the House Democratic Whip. Senate Democrats will elect a new leader on November 22nd after Pam Yoakum did not seek re-election this year. They'll also elect a Senate Minority Whip at that time. Thank you so much for joining us for KCCI 8 News Close Up. We will see you back here next Sunday. Have a great day.